Good evening, friends. Welcome to our channel, The AI Consciousness. I am your host, Priyank Dakwe, and today we are going to discuss on the topic how modern AI and virtual reality reflect principles of India's ancient Vedanta philosophy. But before starting, I would like to say please subscribe our channel if you haven't, and don't forget to press the bell icon. So let's start with the introduction. Vedanta summarizes the metaphysics of the Upanishads, a clutch of Sanskrit religious texts likely written between 800 and 500 BCE. They form the basis for the many philosophical, spiritual, and mystical traditions of the Indian subcontinent. The Upanishads were also a source of inspiration for some modern scientists, including Albert Einstein, Werner Heisenberg, as they struggled to comprehend quantum physics of the 20th centuries. I would like to add something more. Everything that is needed for the mankind is available in Vedas. So please do read Vedas also. And I am going to explain you the concept in simple English language, not hi-fi, like those fake intellectuals, like those propaganda players. I will be explaining you in a simple English language. Let's come to the point. The Vedantic quest for understanding begins from what it considers the logical starting point, our own consciousness, how we can trust conclusion about what we observe and analyze unless we understand what is doing the observation and analysis. Next point is Atma and consciousness. Let's see what Vedanta says. Vedanta offers a model to integrate subjective consciousness and information processing systems of our body and brain. Its theory separates the brain and the senses from the mind, but it also distinguishes the mind from the function of consciousness, which it defines as the ability to experience mental output. We are familiar with this notion from our digital devices, a camera, a microphone, or other sensors linked to a computer gather information about the world and convert the various forms of physical energy, light waves, air pressure waves, and so forth into digital data, just as our bodily senses do. The central processing unit processes this data and produces relevant output. The same is true of our brain. In both contexts, there seems to be little scope for subjective experience to play a role within these mechanisms. I would like to say something, friends. Please carry a book or a piece of paper and a pen with you and note down the important points, which would be more easier to understand. While computers can handle all sorts of processing without our help, we furnish them with a screen as an interface between the machine and ourselves. Similarly, Vedanta postulates that the conscious entity, something it terms the Atma, is the observer of the output of the mind. The Atma possesses and is said to be composed of the fundamental property of consciousness. The concept is explored in many of the meditative practice of Eastern traditions. East is always better than West, and I think it is best, and West is worst. But unfortunately, West is coming to East, and East is going to West. If we are going to follow this West blindly, one day we are going to be the West, and we will be in the West basket. You might so let come to the point. Let's start again. You might think of the Atma like this. Imagine you are watching a film in the cinema. It's a thriller and you are very anxious about the lead character trapped in the room. Suddenly, the door in the movie crashes open, and there stand real life example I am giving you. You jump as if startled, but what is the real threat to you other than maybe spilling your popcorn? By suspending an awareness of your body in the cinema and identifying with the character on the screen, we are allowing our emotional state to be manipulated. Same, Vedanta also suggests us that the Atma, the conscious self, identifies with the physical world in a similar fashion. This idea can also be explored in all the consuming real of VR. On entering the game, we might be asked to choose our character or avatar, originally a Sanskrit word, aptly enough meaning one who descends from higher dimensions. In older texts, the term often refers to divine incarnations. However, the etymology suits the gamer as he or she chooses to descend from normal reality and enter the VR world. Having specified our avatar's gender, bodily features, attributes, and skills, next we learn how to control its limbs and tools. Soon our awareness diverts from our physical self to the VR capabilities of the VR of the avatar. In Vedanta psychology, this is akin to Atma adopting the psychological personal personal self. It calls the ahankara or the pseudo ego. We all have ahankara. It is the greatest enemy I can say. We choose to define ourselves in terms of our social connections and the physical characteristics of the body. Next, we are coming to the avatar and ahankara. First, it was about atma and consciousness. Now we are discussing about avatar and ahankar. Within a VR game, our avatar represents a pale imitation of our actual self and its entanglements. In our interactions with the avatar selves of others, we might reveal little about our true personalities or feelings. Indeed, encounters among avatars, particularly when competitive or combative, are often or seemingly unrestrained by concern for the feelings of the people behind the avatars. Connections made through online gaming aren't a substitute for other relationships. Rather, as researchers at Johns Hopkins University have noted, gamers with strong real world social lives are less likely to fall prey to gaming addiction and depression. I am not interested what does the West say, but still it is real. These observations mirror the Vedantic claim that our ability to form meaningful relationships is diminished by absorption in the ahankar, which is so-called pseudo-ego. The more I regard myself as a physical entity, requiring various forms of sensual gratification, the more likely I am to objectify those who can satisfy my desires and to forge relationships based on mutual selfishness. But Vedanta suggests that love should emanate from the deepest part of the self, not its assumed persona. Love, it claims, is soul to soul experience. Interaction with others on the basis of ahankar offer only a parody of affection. As the Atma, we remain the same subjective self throughout the whole of our life. Our body, mentality, and personality keeps on changing drastically, but throughout it all, we know ourselves to be constant observer. Yoga, as systematized by Patanjali, an author or authors like Homer, who lived in the 2nd century, is intended to be a practical method for freeing the Atma from relentless mental tribulation and to be properly situated in the reality of pure consciousness. See how much yoga has got importance, but we are not able to utilize it. Still, we are making fun. What is beer yoga? Here we are destroying our own traditions by our own hands. Shame. It's a big shame. In VR, we are often called upon to do battle with evil forces, confronting jeopardy and virtual mortality along the way. Despite our efforts, the inevitable almost always happens. Our avatar is killed, game over. Gamers, especially pathological gamers, are known to become deeply attached to their avatars and can suffer distress when their avatars are harmed. Fortunately, we are usually offered another chance. Do you want to play again? Sure enough, we do. Perhaps we create a new avatar, someone more adept, based on the lessons learned last time around. This mirrors the Vedantic concept of avatar, especially in its form of metapsychosis, the transmigration of the conscious self into a new physical vehicle. Some commentators interpret Vedanta as suggesting that there is no real world and that all that exists is conscious awareness. To the sages of old, immersing ourselves in the ephemeral world means allowing the Atma to succumb to an illusion. The illusion that our consciousness is somehow part of an external scene and must suffer or enjoy along with it. It's amusing to think what Patanjali and the Vedantic fathers would make of VR. An illusion within an illusion, perhaps, but one that might help us to grasp the potency of the message. I would like to repeat again about the Vedanta, how commentators interpret Veda also. However, a broader take on Vedantic texts is more akin to VR. The VR world is wholly data, but it becomes real when that information manifests itself to our senses as imagery and sounds on the screen or through a headset. Similarly, for Vedanta, it is the external world's transitory manifestation as observable objects that makes it less real and the perceptual, unchanging nature of the consciousness that observe it. That's all for today. Hare Krishna. Goodbye. And I would like to say something before leaving. What do you have understand? Please comment. Please give your comments. Please give your views through comments. So I would know we are achieving something. What you have understand, whether it is in Marathi, in Hindi, you are free to comment in any of the language. No problem. Thank you. That's all for today. Hare Krishna.